From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 542 for December 16th, 2024. This episode is brought to you by Squarespace and Fitbod. My name is Myke Hurley, and I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason Snell.
Hi, Myke Hurley. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I have a Snell Talk question for you to start out this week's episode. It comes from Mark. Mark wants to know, Jason, regular listeners are well aware of your opinions about peanut butter. But what are your thoughts on peanut butter confections, such as Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, Peanut Brittle, Peanut Butter Ice Cream, etc.?
Peanut butter flavor is good. Stuff that tastes like real peanuts is better than stuff that tastes like fake peanuts. Reese's Peanut Butter Cups are nice. Peanut butter and chocolate are two great tastes that taste great together. Peanut Brittle is great. I don't have it very often. No, it's my dad's favorite candy, actually, was peanut brittle. Peanut butter ice cream is good. I'll tell you, there's a frozen yogurt place that we always went when we visited Lauren's parents, and we actually went. They kind of closed down the store by their house, but they've opened a new one now, which we were all very excited about because my kids, especially, like, this was the special thing about visiting Grandma and Grandpa was going to Golden Spoon yogurt. And most frozen yogurt places, but certainly Golden Spoon, always had a peanut butter flavor. And what's interesting is there are actually two kinds of peanut butter flavor. Like I said, there's kind of the one that tastes more like roasted peanuts, and then there's the one that tastes like peanut butter flavor. And the peanut butter flavor is fine, but the roasted peanut, the actual like real peanut butter sort of flavor, is the best. And in fact, if I see peanut butter on a frozen yogurt menu, I will order it. Always default number one. Always what I will get. But it's not my favorite ice cream flavor. I don't really buy it. It's kind of weird, but the frozen yogurt, there's something about it. That's just like a special kind of thing for me. The little soft frozen yogurt in peanut flavor.
Maybe frozen yogurt is closer. Oh, hang on a second. Frozen yogurt. Jeez, I've got to try and keep some of these. You know, we had a family thing at the weekend, and everyone was making fun of me.
Join us.
As they do.
Yeah, you're
like,
with all your
look at all the funny
Americanisms.
things you say, you American. Anyway, frozen yogurt is closer in consistency to peanut butter than ice cream is, and I imagine that might make it nicer.
It is. That's true.
Not
That's
that I
true.
would know,
Make a good
because
point.
I'm definitely allergic to peanuts, but in visuals, I can see that it would be, you know?
Well, I mean, you know the difference between... Well, that's true. You can see what peanut butter is from a distance, and probably have tried frozen yogurt before.
I sure have. If you would like to send in a Snell Talk question to help us open a future episode of the show, go to upgradefeedback.com and do that. Thank you to Mark for sending that one in. Let's do some follow-up. This really isn't follow-up, but there isn't really a section to put it. To say,
it is.
It
is follow-up.
It's follow-up, I guess. Okay.
It's secret follow-up.
Yes, you know what? Very secret follow-up to my last couple of years. Very happy to share that my wife and I are expecting our first child in February. Yep. Very excited. Adina is doing great. We're having a baby girl, and we could not be happier about it.
I give you my public upgrade congratulations for this. Obviously, I've known about this for a long time and given you many private congratulations about it. You kept this on the down low for a long time, which is great. In fact, funny story. We were over at your house. Lauren and I were over at your house right before the Relay 10 show over the summer. Yep. And you were showing us the house. And there was one room where you're like, and this is going to be a room that we use for things. And as we left, I said to Lauren, that was totally the baby's room, and they're not telling us that they're having a baby yet, but that's totally what's going on. And then like a week after we got back, you're like, yeah, we're having a baby. It's fine. It's happening.
When
it's like, aha!
During Relay 10, Adina was pregnant, but it was incredibly early. Like still in the very much like don't tell anyone phase.
Right, but I cut your slip, and I was like, I know what's going on here, but we're not going to say anything. I'm not going to ask. It's just you're going to tell us when you're ready. It's great. Also, I feel like the untold. This is not. I mean, this is true, but it's like it goes beyond this. But like the Stephen taking a month sabbatical, great idea. I'm glad he did it. I do believe was prompted by the idea that his co-founder was going to be taking paternity leave, but everybody heard about them in the opposite order. I find that hilarious.
Yeah, so me and Stephen recorded Backstage today, which is a membership show. It's like a monthly membership show, and we talk about this of like it wasn't like, oh, hey, if you're going to do this, then I'm going to take time. But it was like for him of like, oh, you know what? I am able to do this. Like, because
Yes.
if Myke is able to take a paternity leave for an extended period of time and that be okay, it means that if Stephen wanted to take leave for some reason, he could too. And so he decided to take his sabbatical. But then it's ended up being in the inverse, as you say. So yeah, I'm going to be away from my shows for somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks, probably 8 weeks. At some point in February.
Great news for all those people who write in when we have a guest host saying the guest host is great and forget about Myke.
Yeah, those people are going to have a great time. They're going to have really excited.
Oh man, the listenership on Upgrade is going to just shoot up for
and then it's going to plummet down to earth in May sometime when all those people's hearts are broken because I returned to the show.
You triumphantly return for the that's right.
So that's planned for sometime in February.
I don't have any guest host announcements to make yet, but I imagine I'm going to rotate through a bunch of people who have guest hosted on this show before, and so you could pretty much guess who they are. Steven was a great replacement for you a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
We'll bring Steven into the mix. I think I've asked. Oh, I guess I am naming names. I asked John Syracuse, and he seems up for it. I asked Dan Morin, and he seems up for it. We'll mix through, and then
you need reliable podcasters, right? Like that's what you need.
Yes, that, and also maybe I'll just finally pull the ripcord on the all Kindle episode with Scott McNulty. That'll drive listenership.
Do that, Jason. Do that the week before I come back.
Okay.
Everyone will be really happy that I've returned.
You got it. Maybe if there's an episode with no ads in it, we'll just pop that one out right then. I don't know. Anyway, congratulations.
People are asking that I'm going to be away from all of my shows, and I'm only pre-recording Cortex. So we're pre-recording a couple of episodes of Cortex because otherwise the show won't happen. And so we're going to do that. And then other than that, all of my co-hosts are being incredible and are going to provide me with that time off. So get ready for lots of conversation about baby technology because that's going to happen. And I will say, send in if you have recommendations for apps or if you have recommendations for baby tech or just general baby recommendations, send them in. Go to upgradefeedback.com, send them in to me. I will appreciate it. And there will be a whole new realm of content for me to talk about. I will say before people recommend, there is an app that I've had a bunch of recommendations for right now. I think it's called Mango Baby, and it is made by a solo iOS app developer who's made this app. So I'm really excited to check that one out because that's exactly what I'm looking for. Because it's like an app that it follows all of the iOS conventions. Like they're adding the new stuff every year. I want to get the developer's name because I followed them on Blue Sky today.
What does it do?
Well, okay, so this is made by Yile Yang, and it is one of these. So maybe you know what, Jason? This obviously wouldn't have been a thing for you. There is a new thing it seems that people do where they're tracking things that babies do. Stuff that babies do. You track that stuff.
Yeah.
And
we
share
had
it
that
with partners and things like that.
We had that too, but it was like on a computer or written down. Back then it was like you could log it on your computer, but now you can have an app for it. Okay, so it's like logging. It's
baby logging. Yeah.
Okay.
But this even has like shortcuts
that baby
support and widgets and everything. It's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm looking forward to checking that one out. But I would take any and all recommendations that people have. And I would also like to thank everybody for being so wonderful and congratulating us over the last week. It's been lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very lovely. But now we do have some more follow-up. iOS 18.2 featuring Apple Intelligence features is now available. You've written a couple of posts about this, and I just wanted to know, because, obviously I've heard about this in the show, but I think I would expect that there are more people in the Six Colors readership than necessarily Upgrade listenership who've maybe tried this out for the first time. And I wondered if you've had any specific feedback.
I'm not hearing a lot about it. I think a lot of people have been on the betas, and so they've been trying it out. I have not. It's been relatively quiet. I think that there's a piece we're going to talk about, a thing that happened that we talked about later. That's the most obvious thing that was ever going to happen with this.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that. Definitely. It's some people. It's what you'd expect. Where some people are like, this isn't very good. They put in pictures of people they know and are horrified at the results.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that too.
Discover after ignoring it the entire beta that there is this view into creating a generic person.
This blew my mind. I saw this in 6 colors. I had no idea this existed.
Yeah, and it's I didn't either. And friend of the show Griffin from Cult of Mac actually is the one who sent me a note saying, "Oh, it's actually easy to create fake humans." I was like, "Easy, except that I didn't know it was there." But it's called appearance. It's in the upper left corner of that thing where it's trying to get you to pick a person not searchable by name, which is very frustrating. I mean, I guess you can try to do it typing it in the prompt, but that doesn't always work. Anyway, you can also choose upper left corner appearance, and then you choose a skin tone, and it gives you 3 buckets that seem to be more female, assorted and neutral gender, and more male. But it's random for every generation of sort of like what person gets generated. So you can't like pick a model and say, I want to use this model in a different setting. If you like a model, you can't pick it. It's more like you will get this assortment of generic humans, and you're limited in what you can specify. It's kind of weird, but there is a way to do it. It doesn't work with image one, so me trying to draw Abe Lincoln and get a generic Abe Lincoln-esque kind of figure does not work, but it does work for Image Playground, and then for Genmoji, you get to pick which of the emoji people. If you want a generic emoji person, you can pick
that one. I knew
male,
about.
female, or neutral.
Yeah, because I've made a bunch of those. I actually made a really great Genmoji today of Adina pregnant, which is very funny, and we found it to be very cute. So like Genmoji, again, I will say, is great. Genmoji is such a good feature. Image Playgrounds, not so much. But we'll talk more about Apple Intelligence in a minute.
Okay.
Last piece of follow-up today. Mac Rumors is reporting via French publication iGénération. That's how I imagine it's said. By the way, I'm currently listening to the French Revolution series of The Rest is History. Jason, I'm so happy, and also sorry that you introduced this podcast to me. You know when you're on vacation and you get behind on your podcasts? That happened to me, and now I'm not catching up on any of them, and they're all getting behind because all I'm doing is just mainlining The Rest is History.
The Rest is History. Well, It happens to all of us eventually.
Yeah, I apologize. Also, I would like to issue my formal apology to all of the podcasts in the upgrades category, because I think you're going to struggle this year.
Probably so.
I think you're going to struggle, but we'll find out. Anyway, Mac Rumors is reporting via French publication iGénération that from December 28th, Apple will no longer be selling any iPhone of a Lightning connector in the European Union. So this is information that has been passed to Apple retail stores from Apple, and it's gotten to iGénération. This is related to the USB-C regulation that passed in 2022, which I believed was only for new models, but it seems that for whatever reason, Apple is applying this. Now, there is a reading of the rules, which is like you can't make new devices, but you can sell old devices. Maybe they don't have enough. Maybe they're just cutting it. But basically, this means the iPhone 14, the iPhone 14 Plus, the iPhone SE, and like Apple Keyboard, bunch of stuff won't get updated. This makes me think maybe this is why the AirPods Max was updated with USB-C.
Yeah.
This is why the keyboards and trackpads have been updated with USB-C.
It's interesting. It looks like maybe it's arguable, but the reason is when individual units are placed in the market, they must comply, which is, I wonder if this reading changed or if this was always it and we just had misread it. But either way, the idea here is basically like, I think they could import a bunch into the market and dump them, but like once the deadline happens, they can't anymore. They can sell what they've got, but that's it. So it sounds like they're just exercising this, and this was the plan, was to just cut it off here. And they do have a new iPhone SE coming in the spring, and they did replace all of the keyboards and trackpads and mice, and so here, and AirPods and all those things. So here we are.
If you enjoy this show, you would like Upgrade Plus, because you get longer ad-free versions of the show each and every week.
That's true.
And you have just a couple more days to get 20% off a new annual membership. Go to getupgradeplus.com and use the code 2024holiday on an annual membership, and you'll get 20% off. There'll also be a link in the show notes so you can do this, or you can go to giverelay.com to learn more or gift a membership to somebody else. So with Upgrade Plus, you get those longer ad-free versions of the show every week. You get tons of bonus content. I've referenced earlier Backstage. Backstage is a monthly show where me and Steven talk about what's going on behind the scenes at Relay and also answer listener questions that we collect from our Discord, which you also get access to. There's tons of great stuff available for Relay members that you can get as becoming a member of Upgrade Plus. You also help support the show, which, for reasons mentioned earlier, I would really love more members. That is my key thing, because membership is reliable income for us. Advertising goes up and down. It's uncertain, but members, one of the things that is incredible about Relay members is they become members and they stay members. Our churn, which is where people leave, is incredibly low. In fact, Memberful, who we work with, they're always really pleased and surprised about how low our membership churn is. So I appreciate that for our members. But what that means, if you're listening to me, is people who become Relay members value that membership. It's a good deal for you. So go to getupgradeplus.com, use the code 2024 holiday, and you will get 20% off an annual membership. Or you can sign up for a monthly membership at full price. Or if you miss the deal, then you will be able to pay and still get it. But it will be worth it. In Upgrade Plus this week, we will talk more about my upcoming child, because I think that'll be fun for us to talk about in a little bit more detail together today. So, getupgradeplus.com. So let's talk about Apple Intelligence and the British Broadcasting Company, the BBC. So the BBC have issued a complaint to Apple over an Apple Intelligence summary that was shared on social media that shows the BBC News app saying that Luigi Mangione, the man who shot and killed health insurance CEO Brian Thompson, which I can't believe is a thing we're talking about on this show now, it said the BBC News app preview said Luigi Mangione has shot himself, which did not happen.
No.
Now, in the article that I've included, which is the BBC's write-up about this, the BBC does not share the actual headline of the article in their story. That was the article headline. I would like to know what that was, and I couldn't find it because I was just interested. Like, what did it say that the AI got mixed up with, right?
And it might not even be the headline. It might be the push notification text, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. But like, I was intrigued what it said, just out of like curiosity, but it didn't say that. But nevertheless, it did do that kind of truncated summary. And this is an exact example of the kinds of things that we knew we were going to see. And it's, I think, pretty problematic for Apple that it's like the BBC is this company. You know, it's like similarly if it was the New York Times, which I think the New York Times did have one in November, but now it's shipping to everyone. And so as well, the BBC say that Apple declined to comment on this story. And this is the first in what will be, I'm sure, a long list of stories like this. And I'm really intrigued to see if Apple says anything or does anything about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought, was this not a thing that we predicted? And I actually looked at our draft of the ages, which we're about halfway through. And I predicted actually that Apple would apologize for something generated by AI, which hasn't happened yet. But I mean, give it time. By the way, if things hold now in the draft of the ages as we're about halfway through, it's looking bad for me. But there's time. There's time. The upgrade.cards, if you'd like to see the draft of the ages. In the
show notes in case people are interested.
It's in there, but that's for 600, where we predict the future from 500, and we're only 42 in, so we've got time left. Shout out to James Thompson, we're 42 in. So yes. What is Apple's policy about commenting on AI generation from their software? Are they going to have a standard boilerplate? Are they going to say nothing? I mean, this is the BBC like demanding, they are complaining anyway. I don't know if they're demanding an apology, but they're complaining, and Apple is declining comment. So I wonder if they have a strategy, if silence is the strategy, if they're going to come up with boilerplate responses that are just like, from time to time Apple buys companies. It'll be, from time to time Apple's AI generation will be, I don't know, something like that. Or, and I do wonder about this, or is there going to be a moment where some executive reads this stuff and says, well, why are we even summarizing that? Or is there no way for us to back off of summarizing something if we lower our confidence in it? Or maybe we shouldn't summarize those news headlines, or I don't know what, right? Like maybe they make a change to kind of reduce their exposure, even if it reduces the utility of this. The problem is these issues are cropping up in all of the summaries, right? Because there's famously that summary about the woman who got her mom sent a text that was like, "Oh, I took that hike today, almost killed me," and the summary was like, "Mom attempted suicide" or something like that, and I was like, "What?"
So bad.
So I don't know. Like, the problem is that there are fundamental problems with this technology, that it does hallucinate even if you tell it not to, and I don't think the technology exists. Wouldn't it be nice if it did, to add like a scrutiny layer that looks at it and says, are we confident that this is something that would happen? Or are we, are there subjects that we're not going to summarize? And what are those words? And then sometimes summaries, just because that happens now with some stuff where, I don't know if you noticed this, but there was this one conversation about how certain LLMs wouldn't say certain names. I don't know if you saw that story.
No.
Where like there's certain names that if you either mention the name or if you tried to lead it to say the name, it would cause an error. And they think this is because these are public figures who either have complained or asked for their name to be stricken, right, right to be forgotten, or they've threatened lawsuits. And it's this sort of like exposure of potentially like a blacklist of items. Like, it's like we're going to ban all of the mentions of these people, and that would be a path Apple could go down, but it's going to just lead to us seeing the residue of any ban list that Apple makes, because they're going to be like, oh, no wonder, why didn't this get summarized? Oh, it's about somebody dying or whatever. But it, like, I don't have a simple solution here, because I don't think there is a simple solution. It's like it's the two-edged sword of using these models is they aren't people, they are LLMs. I wonder in the long run if what Apple might try to do is get more data, which is just off the top of my head. Like, I wonder if they could expand the push notification protocol, for example, to add like a rich layer of data that was beyond it, so that it could actually, like the BBC hands it a more complicated summary that it could use to process to make its own little headline. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is here, but I've heard from, like, I still have my summaries on, partially because I write about this stuff, but I totally sympathize with people who've just turned them off, because you basically can't trust them. I mean, I mostly use them as at a glance, did something happen? Yeah. But it's true that then you need to read the individual things, right? You can't not read the individual things.
So like I'm seeing a lot of people online, especially like on Blue Sky and stuff, like talking about the story, and they say like nobody's asking for this feature, this summary feature, and I will just be the person who defends it and say I am asking for it. Like, okay, I like the notification summary features. Like, I feel like I am present of mind enough to be able to pull these things apart, right, from each other. But what I do is turn it off for certain applications. If, like, for example, podcast for Overcast, I turned it off for Overcast because it doesn't make sense for me there. But for like message conversations, I find it to be very useful to get 6 notifications summarized into one quick sentence. Of course, I'm going to read them anyway, but that's the whole point. Even the notification of a message, you see the notification in its full text, you still go to the message and read it again, because that's just how we deal with notifications. You're just thinking about them differently. I think that it's great that Apple offers the ability for you to opt in and out, well, opt into everything and then opt out certain applications. So you find the ones that work for you. But there's certain types of apps where they send notifications frequently, and all you really need is a quick glance at what these things are. And I find it to be, personally, I find it to be a very useful thing. But I know why people don't like it, but I think you can kind of exert your own control over it a little bit and just have the types of apps that you want rather than everything. But I do think that there is a lot of utility in this feature.
Yeah, part of my frustration is that some of the stuff I hoped it would do, it doesn't do. Like, it will coalesce, it'll coalesce headlines and stuff like that. But the one that I really hoped it would do, and this is, I wrote a piece about this at Macworld, is I wanted to do a better job processing message notifications. Because, you get a chat in messages, like a group thread, just pop off.
Yep.
And that's where I want summaries, right? That's where I want my family chat. That's Lauren's whole family, and there's 18 messages. That's where I want a good summary. But it doesn't do it. Like, instead, what I get is every individual message, but then I look at the notification and I get a summary. And it's like, I want this stuff to be more intelligent. I want this stuff, especially for something like messages, to be, or any app that's spamming you. Like, I feel like it does a good job um, with my camera notifications, right? But I've not been able to experience this with messages, where what I really want is, I want it to be like, oh, it looks like this thread is popping off. I'm going to not bug you about it and just put give you a notification that says this thread is popping off and it's about this. And it's not subtle enough to do that. It's not smart enough to do that. And so, like, I see a lot of utility in doing this, a lot of utility in silencing things and summarizing them. And maybe it's just my settings, but like, the one place where I wanted to see it, which was in that family chat, where like there's nothing, and then suddenly there's 20 messages. And in most places, I've muted it because I just can't. But even then, when I go to my lock screen, I get there were 17 messages and not a summary. I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is a feature that has a lot of potential. I just don't know how you handle the downside of this in a way, if you're Apple, that, do you just say nothing and say, like, from time to time the headlines in your news headline summary are going to be wrong?
Yeah.
I just
this
is
this is like a microcosm of the problems that Apple Intelligence has at large, which is, there is promise here, but you may turn people off of it because you didn't implement it fully enough with the first version. And like, and I also think of, like,
that's the danger.
Siri's not smarter in any possible way.
Exactly.
But they've tried to make you believe that it is, but it isn't.
Right.
And like, so I worry that in doing all of this and doing it the way that they have done it, with the rollout that they have done, that they have ended up harming themselves for later on. But maybe this is the only way you can do something like this, because you have to learn from it. I don't know. I will say, before we move on from this, do yourself a favor and just turn off notifications for news apps. Like, I just say this to everyone in the world. You do not need push notifications for your favorite news service, in my opinion. Like, go to the news when you want it. The news doesn't have to come to you.
Yes. Although, again, I would say there's a revamped notification system here that would allow you to set your notification for your news to be whenever you glance, there's a news summary, but that it doesn't. Certainly, I think that pushing headlines to you is something you shouldn't
Notification Center is not a great place for news, in general, no matter how you do it, in my opinion.
I agree, but other people obviously disagree, and they want to get their breaking news there. I think the problem also is that once a new news organization has you, they're gonna push notification you to death.
Here's the issue.
Right?
There is no such thing as breaking news anymore. Right? Every piece of new information is considered to be breaking news. Breaking news used to mean something serious is going on.
Yes.
But now everything is breaking, because the term breaking has lost. Like, it's actually been defined. It's like it's been reduced to its actual meaning, which is, here's some new information. But that is not
it's
what
coming over the wire right now.
Yeah. So
absolutely, no, you've got it. And also, there's just a structural. If you can talk somebody, like, even if you are a very important news organization and you say, look, we have lots of different notifications you can get from our app, but one of them is high priority. It's only the most important things.
Mm-hmm.
I'll guarantee it. Somebody's going to look at the metrics and say, too many people have signed up for this thing. There's so many people there. We really need to promote this puzzle that we did today.
Yes.
Or we really need to promote this recipe that we did today. And yeah, somebody in their editorial group or their tech group can say, no, we said that this would only be the most important stuff. But I will guarantee you there will be somebody who's got revenue attached to their compensation who will override them and force those things into the push notification. So you can't win.
Yep. On this show in the past, we have tracked Tim Cook's movements across the world.
Yes.
All right. So I want to talk about Where's Tim? Because I think something's going on, Jason.
Oh,
Right? Now,
interesting, intriguing.
So I think something's happening. So last week on the 11th,
where in the world is Tim San Diego?
There you go. Last Wednesday, an article went up on the UK Apple newsroom, right? I think it's just on the UK Apple newsroom. Apple expands UK investment and doubles local engineering teams. This is, all respect to the people that put this together, an absolute puff piece where all it's doing is talking about Apple's investments over time. Like, it's not announcing, for what I can see, like it's not like, oh, hey, we're about to double it. It's like
just breaking news.
Breaking news.
To your point about what things aren't breaking news, it begins. Apple today announced today. There's your news angle. Its investment in the United Kingdom has grown to exceed £18 billion over the past 5 years.
We announced today that we did a thing
have
before.
doubled during that time. Yes, Apple today announced that it's been a good 5 years.
Yeah. Where I also think it's not that they've necessarily employed new people, because they basically made Battersea the European headquarters. So I actually think they consolidated some roles into London that maybe weren't there before. But so this went up, and I was like, hang on a minute, something's going on here, because it just felt like a weird thing. I was expecting Apple trying to leverage something in the UK, and then Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, posts a picture with Tim Cook. They're sitting together, They're talking. For some reason, the Prime Minister is advertising Apple Intelligence to people, as he says, good to meet Tim Cook. Apple's investment in the UK and the rollout of Apple Intelligence is testament to our world-leading tech sector, which I think is hilarious because it's got literally nothing to do with us, but Keir Starmer's taking credit for Apple Intelligence.
Mention Apple Intelligence, please.
So that's happened, right? So and then,
well,
so
it is.
Then I'm like,
Myke, the subtext there is it's not launching in Europe, right? That is a Labour Prime Minister making hay with a Brexit thing, right? But it is true. It's like, look at us, though. We've got it. And does the EU have it yet? No, because we are...
That's a good point. Yep.
A lawless, outside the realm. We're more like the US, basically, is what he's saying there. But fair enough.
So when I saw this, I'm like, oh, here we go. Something's happening. Because one of the pillars of the Labour government is they are trying to get business to invest back in the UK. It's like part of trying to drive our economy. And I was talking to Stephen and Federico about this because I was like trying to piece this together. I felt like Charlie from Always Sunny, right, with the string on the wall. And Federico said something that I thought was really interesting. And he's like, I bet there's going to be an announcement of a data center in the UK. And I think something like that might be coming, that some infrastructure project is going to be announced here.
Now, wait a second. Were you talking to Stephen and Federico on Wednesday when you were recording Connected? Is that when you were talking to them?
Yes.
Because the next day, what happened?
The king. The king.
Yeah, I mean... just
the storm clouds of war.
Yeah. We love the king. We love a king here on the Upgrade program. We love to hear about a king. This is again in the context of Myke's yarn diagram. We've reached the point where the king appears. The king of England appears in the United Kingdom because it's United England, Scotland, Northern Ireland. Yada yada yada. But you get me. Charles III appears with who?
With Tim Cook.
With Tim Cook.
So this is where it continues for me, where this visit appears to be like, hey, so like the royal family is like, hey, the king is at Battersea today, and he is visiting with some local businesses that have set up this market, and he's also going to meet Apple. And Apple have put on the biggest show. They got all the employees in the hallways. He's meeting with people. They unveil this plaque that commemorates the king's visit. Jason, something's going on, and I don't know what it is, but like something has happened or is happening. I'm convinced of this. That like all of these things mean something. I just don't know what they are. Because this was an awful lot of stuff to occur within a couple of day period. Because Tim makes visits here all the time. He's always doing things. We've made fun of it in the past. He doesn't typically meet with the two most powerful people in this country within a 24-hour time frame. And that is what's happened. So something.
something is going on, or it's we need to, maybe it's like the UK, we want them to not pass something that affects us,
Yeah.
or we're going to give another investment in and make an announcement. So it seems right. It's the politics too. It's like,
Yes.
it makes it seem like a win that Apple is a friend of the UK, that
Yep.
it's not a scary big tech company, that Keir Starmer could be like, yay, investment. And by the way, Apple Intelligence, like
But
it's
I don't
all part of
believe
that
Keir
game.
gets that photo, right? With that, like, there's something's going on. And it might not be that
Okay.
they make some big announcement, but like, I see this and I'm like, something is happening between Apple and the United Kingdom, which, I mean, I don't mind. I'm happy about that. Like, I want
Okay.
investment in my country. We need it. And so this is great. Then Tim Quick takes quite the detour and he's dining with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
Yep.
The next
It's on the way
day,
home.
it's
It's on the
reported
way home.
that he's going to Mar-a-Lago. And I'll
It's on the
say,
way
I
home.
said this on the show before, right? Like, I've seen this. We've had some people write into us and they're like, what does this mean? Look, we've been here before, all right?
We have.
He has to do this. And like, I understand that you don't like it, but Americans, he's going to be your president in like a month. Tim has to have a relationship with him. Like, I love the idea personally of Tim Cook deciding to shun Donald Trump. I think that's so fun, right? That would be great. But then what happens to all of Tim's employees? The thousands and thousands of people that he is responsible for.
The company gets harmed, and then
Yes.
and then Tim Cook is replaced by the board, is what will happen, right?
Yeah.
And that's the truth. Is I know people. It's very easy for people to be like, well, if I were CEO of Apple, I wouldn't meet with Donald Trump. It's like, well, okay,
then you wouldn't be CEO of Apple.
You wouldn't be CEO of Apple for very long, and that's like that's Tim Cook's other option here, is just to quit. I mean, that's his other option.
Yeah.
But the next CEO will need to do it too. And as we know from what happened, you know, during the first Trump administration, is they're playing the game. It's uncomfortable, but it ends up being a way for Apple to navigate treacherous waters and get, and maybe get relief from tariffs or other sanctions, to be viewed as an ally in terms of being a conduit to China, to being supportive of Taiwan, to maybe building up chip infrastructure in the US, right? Because that's part of the story too, is things like Trump administration pretty bellicose about China, but like the CHIPS Act and TSMC building a factory in Arizona and like to build chips for Apple. This is all part of this global kind of thing. And if you can also give Trump a win in saying, look at Apple doing things in America, even though Apple's still also doing lots of things not in America, you go by. And like that's like, again, he's a CEO of a giant company. This is a corollary, and I know we've talked about this before, but it's a corollary to that whole thing about Apple is also not a charity. Apple is a profit-making company, publicly owned. It is all those things. The job of the CEO, this is the fiduciary responsibility of the CEO, is to do stuff like this. And I think Tim Cook has shown that he has actually proved to be a skilled diplomat who gets what he needs and gives what he needs to get it without completely selling out. And that is just he is navigating some treacherous waters. That is the storm clouds are gathering, Myke, is what I'm saying. Yes. And Tim Cook is, getting his what are they called? What are rain boots called in Britain? He's getting his wellies on.
Wellies, he's getting his wellies on. Yeah.
And
he's
got his umbrella out. He's got his brolly out.
It seems like Trump is calling all the CEOs, because there's been like, I think Zuckerberg was there, Sundar was there. Like, he's calling them all in, and they're meeting with him and talking about whatever it is they're talking about. Right. But this is the way it has to go. Yeah. Like, if this is the scenario, there is no other way to deal with it, right?
Yeah,
you can't ignore him.
It's just you're the CEO of a company. This is what you have to do. And again, yes, it's diplomacy and trying to make a deal. I mean, that's the funny thing about this is Trump is a deal guy. That's his whole thing. Like, talking to businessmen, first off, he loves it. He loves talking to businessmen because he's rubbing shoulders with legitimate businessmen, and he feels like that makes him look good. It's like, this is what's great about America, is we got all these CEOs and we got all these big companies. Their skepticism about big tech that they've had is a threat, but at the same time, as I said a few weeks ago, also, these are huge American companies. And so there's that aspect of it, which is this is American power extended around the world. And that is a thing that I think as a US president, you have to view positively. So all of these CEOs just have to navigate all of this. And do you think, I'll say this, I am sure that there are some of these CEOs who don't mind it. And I'm sure there are some of these CEOs who don't like it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I will say, knowing what I know about Tim Cook's background, I don't think he likes it, but I think he knows he has to do it. And I think he's good at it. And I think that that's actually important is if you can be seen by the president of the United States as to be, in this case, but thinking back to 2016 to 2020 as well, as an ally, as somebody you can do business with, as somebody who has connections in places like in China that are useful, right? Like that's a good place to be, is to be in that position and not be adversarial. And, you know, does Trump know that Tim Cook disagrees with him about lots of stuff? Of course he does. But when it comes to money and business and maybe international stuff, if you can be seen as somebody who is, you know, not an adversary, then you're gonna be better off. And that's the game Tim Cook has played before and is playing again. Now, I don't know exactly what that means about the King and Keir Starmer. That is still a mystery to be unraveled by Myke Hurley, official UK best. Yarn correspondent. But
boots on the ground.
Wellies on the ground.
Wellies on the ground. Wellies on the ground on this one. But yeah, I'm convinced something's happening here. I just don't know what it is yet. But as soon as I find out, I'll follow up on the show.
Okay.
By the way, the tip line is open. Ask upgradefeedback.com. You can send in your anonymous tips.
We did break some news retroactively last week, so
yes. That was pretty funny,
just as an aside, we were a footnote in a Daring Fireball article that mentioned an anonymous thing we got about, which we had forgotten about from several years ago, about how the M4 or M5 Ultras weren't going to happen because they had already moved on. And this happened 2 years ago. But John remembered and found our transcript from David Smith's Pod Search transcripts and posted it. And it was just a hilarious moment of Upgrade. Just we're breaking news left and right this month.
Yep,
it's amazing.
We can't be stopped.
So send those anonymous tips in. The anonymous tip line is open.
Yep. If you so happen to hear the King and Tim discusses something, you let me know.
Oh man, can you imagine? It's like I am within the government, and I like the anonymous Westminster informant who's like, here's what Keir Starmer is up to.
Yeah,
can't wait.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just getting started or managing a growing brand, you could stand out with a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell your products or services, even the content that you create, because Squarespace has everything you need, all in one place, all on your terms. With Squarespace, you can make the most of design intelligence. Squarespace has combined 2 decades of industry-leading web design expertise with cutting-edge AI technology to unlock your strongest creative potential. Design intelligence powers anyone to build a beautiful, more personalized website faster than ever before, tailored to their unique needs, helping them craft a bespoke digital identity to use across your entire online presence. I really love what Squarespace has done here because they've been able to take their literal decades of experience to help you get started really quickly. They can help you in understanding how your website's going to look. They can help you in understanding how your page structure is going to be. Like, what are the things that you would need for the website that you're building? But then, like all Squarespace websites, it's incredibly easy to go in, customize, and tweak with drag-and-drop tools to your heart's content. That is the main reason why I have been using Squarespace for almost nearly 2 decades at this point, because it's so easy for me to be able to make the website look the way that I want in a way that I can understand. Then once you've got everything ready to go and you're out to the world, you can get discovered fast with integrated SEO tools. Every Squarespace website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions and auto-generated sitemaps and more, so you show up more often to more people in global search engine results. I don't know what the right things are to make my website look best in search engines, so I let Squarespace do that for me. That is just another example of what you get by being a Squarespace customer. They stay on top of all this stuff, so you don't have to, but then you better benefit from it. Go and try this out for yourself. Go to squarespace.com. You can sign up for a free trial. You can build your entire website. Then when you're ready to launch it to the world, go to squarespace.com/upgrade. You'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain when you do so. That's squarespace.com/upgrade. When you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for the show. Our thanks to Squarespace for the continued support of this show and all of Relay. Rumor Roundup time, Jason Snell.
Yeehaw! Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Gurman has shared some.
I watched a Western. I watched a Western movie. Yesterday, and so I'm really feeling the Roundup part of it.
All right,
because I was in that mood. By the way, as an aside, as it came up, the warning label on it was rated R, Western violence. And Lauren and my immediate comment was, "Oh, my favorite kind of violence." And Lauren and I discussed what other directional violence we preferred. She said she preferred Southern violence, like Angry Penguins. And I said my second favorite after Western violence is Northwestern violence, because that's somebody trying to kill you with an airplane.
Okay, I like that. Well, maybe it was rated R for Roundup. Did you consider that?
Oh, for Rumor Roundup.
Rated R. Rated double R for Rumor Roundup.
Yeehaw!
Mark Gurman has shared some details on where Apple currently stands on foldable devices. So it appears that right now that one of the devices that Apple is working on would be an iPad that, when it's unfolded, would be about the size of 2 iPad Pros side by side. I'm assuming 11-inch iPad Pros.
I hope
what
so.
He's talking about.
Yeah.
It looks like this project is targeted for release in 2028. As you can imagine, Apple's designers are working very hard to minimize screen creases, and apparently this is something they've had some breakthroughs in. And Mark shares that he is unsure which OS would run on this device. So, but this I'm not sure what I think about this.
Okay, I wanna read this paragraph.
Right. Okay,
because this is the paragraph. So Sunday morning comes, and I made the mistake of launching social media before I launched my RSS reader on Sunday morning. And so I was spoiled about Power On, which is funny because I was like, oh boy, what is Mark Gurman up to now? But as I read it, this is the paragraph that blew my mind. It's not yet clear what operating system the Apple computer will run. Okay, that's right. So it's like an iPad, but is it an iPad? If he's not sure what operating system, but my guess is that it will be iPad OS or a variant of it. Well, that's interesting, right? Is there something that isn't iPad OS but is like iPad OS that runs only on this device? Still a mystery. He continues, I don't believe it will be a true iPad Mac hybrid, but the device will have elements of both. What does that mean? Does that mean it'll have like different ports? Is it a Mac, or does he truly, as he says, it's not yet clear, which is a very passive statement of I don't know, right? Is what he really is saying there is I don't know, but it will have elements of both. What does that mean? He continues, by the time 2028 rolls around, iPad OS should be advanced enough to run macOS apps. What? Is that just an aside of like, oh, by 2028, iPad OS will just run macOS apps? Or what does it mean? I mean, I could argue that it's advanced enough to run macOS apps now. It just doesn't. But by 2028 will be even more. He continues, but it also makes sense to support iPad accessories like the Apple Pencil, which sure, if you've got a giant screen like that, you'd want to use the Apple Pencil on it. I don't know what any of this means. It sounds like what he's saying is it could be an iPad, it could be a Mac, it could be some other variant of it. I think it'll be an iPad or some other variant of it. I don't think it'll be a hybrid, but by 2028, iPad OS should be able to run Mac OS apps. I mean, they should be able to run them now, but they don't. But by 2028, the advancements will have happened so that they will be able to. Myke, I don't know what this product is. And the problem is, I think Mark Gurman doesn't know either.
No, sure he doesn't.
Because I think this is literally, not to jump ahead, but I think this is literally the same device that was rumored to be a laptop foldable that we reported about, where we felt baffled about how it could be a Mac given what it was. And I would say the same about this prediction. The idea that there is a giant iPad-like thing that you fold out, that's fine. But I find it funny that Mark Gurman is sort of like saying it could be anything. Essentially, he wants to say it's an iPad. He says it's iPad-like, or it's basically an iPad, but that one paragraph is so full of doubt. It's like, could be an iPad, could be a Mac, could be a hybrid, could be an iPad that runs Mac OS apps. I don't know. Probably has Apple Pencil support. And I share his confusion about what this product is, because I am also unclear about it. Is it just a giant unfoldable iPad, or is there more to it than that? Can you attach a keyboard to it and have it be a Mac, or is it just a big iPad? Does it have a kickstand? How does it stand up? Like, I don't know. It's a real mystery here.
Aaron Tilley and Yang Jia at the Wall Street Journal have also published a report about Apple's foldable ambitions. They also talk about a 19-inch folding screen, which they reference would be, quote, intended to serve as a laptop. What is this computer? What is this?
What? Why? As a laptop, what does that mean? You use the bottom half of the screen as a laptop or not? Because Mark talks about
it folds, right?
Wanting to get the crease
could fold
out, right?
to laptop shape, couldn't it?
Sure, and then you could also open it up, which is why, as a convertible, it seems interesting. Like, look, I have said for a while now that I want Apple to try bizarre shapes of computers, right? I almost said form factor, which I don't like saying, but
I wrote form factor twice in the document and deleted it.
But I want weird computers. I want Apple to try weird computers. I do, and this is super weird, right? Like, what is it? And I'm sure that if they come out with this thing, it's going to have a whole line of accessories, and they're going to be like, "This is how we expect you to use it, like this," and all of that. But like, I love the idea that they seem to be making a convertible. Essentially, it's something that could be used as a laptop, used as a big screen. Is it an iPad? Is it a Mac? Not even Mark Gurman knows for sure. Maybe it's both. Maybe this is the moment. Sometimes Apple likes to roll out major new features attached to hardware, right? So the idea is we're going to hold on to trackpad support on iPad until the Magic Keyboard comes out, because then it's got a trackpad. And now everybody can use trackpads, and you can pair external ones and whatever, but like we don't roll it out until we've got that thing. I think that's a thing Apple does. So is this the moment that Apple says, oh yeah, you can run Mac OS or Mac OS apps on iPad OS? Is this product? Are they targeting this in 2028? I don't know, but I like, as a laptop, it doesn't make as much sense to me. That seems really weird, but I don't know. I don't know what this product is, but
this
I love
is
that it's
the
out
issue
here.
Sometimes with. And I don't think his fault. It's just sometimes the issue with Mark Gurman's reporting, because he is so well sourced, right? Obviously, clearly, he is the sheriff, right? Like,
he doesn't have
the top.
Yeah, he doesn't have vision into this necessarily, or his
the point. What I'm saying is, we don't know, right? Like, is this comment should be able to run macOS apps? Is that his opinion? Or is that something he knows? Like, that's always the problem with this stuff, right? But
that reads like knowledge to me, right? It reads like he knows something about iPad OS in 2028 being advanced.
2028 is quite specific, but I will go back to 2028 is when he's saying this product will come out.
Right. And I don't think he's written a story. And if this was more, he would have a story about it, that Apple has a plan to run Mac OS apps inside iPad OS.
This
apps.
might
he
be
hasn't
his
reported that, I don't
March
think.
report for WWDC, right? That he does. He always have that big report at some point where he's like, all right, here's what's coming. And like, this maybe isn't, if he does know this isn't enough to do that whole report yet, maybe. Or maybe he's not well enough sourced to put it on Bloomberg.
If you reverse engineer this, though, it's also possible that there is a project inside Apple that he knows about that lets iPad OS run Mac apps.
It certainly
he's
exists.
Talked to somebody. Well, but here's the thing. So he's talked to somebody, and they're like, yeah, we've got that running. It's probably going to ship in the next couple of years, but it's also possible that they're just going to pull the plug and never ship it, because it's very controversial on the inside. And we're trying it out, but we don't know. And that kind of non-committal information, this is the sort of way that it would get presented, right? If I'm going to reverse engineer it, which is you say it should be like, that there's something going on, that if they want, but there's a question of will they do it? It'll be there if they want it to be there, but it might not be there. I really do wonder about that, because that is quite a little bomb to drop like that. And I think the reason that's not another story is largely because he doesn't know, and this is how that comes out. Is this whole paragraph is like Mark Gurman sort of trying to get at what he the uncertainty that he's hearing about what's going on here and what he doesn't know about. But it's fascinating to see that, because I mean, his sources are great, which the truth is, this is a product that we're talking about that's 4 years out. So there's a lot of vagueness about it, right? There's a lot of vagueness about it.
That was the biggest disappointment to me in this report, is that's a long way away. That's a really long way away still. And I understand, like, this is, if they do this and they do it right, it could be pretty amazing. And so I do want them to get it right, but that's a long way, especially when Mark also talks in this report that Apple is exploring a foldable iPhone, which he wouldn't expect to see until 2026. And like, if they do actually release a foldable iPhone in 26, which I also think is too far away, but nevertheless, it would be even worse that we don't get this iPad Mac thing until 28, right? Like, you've got like another 2 years after foldables like begin. And I'll also say that the Wall Street Journal report also talks about the iPhone and says that the plan Apple has right now is that it is an iPhone that folds inward, so kind of think more like Z Flip, with a display that would be bigger than a 16 Pro Max. I don't know about that. Don't know about that. Are they going to put a display on the outside? I hope so, but I don't know. They reference in the article that it's considered, but maybe not decided upon.
I don't know.
We'll see. Additionally, in the Wall Street Journal report by Aaron and Yang, in this report, they also talk about the iPhone 17 Air, that it will be, quote, ultra thin with a simplified camera system, with a starting price lower than the Pro phones, which is not where I think we thought that this would go.
It says literally the replacement for the Plus.
Yeah.
Even in terms of the price slot.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
I think I'm kind of happy to hear this, because I don't think this is the phone for me. It'll be really interesting, but my concern was, like, if they really went all out with it, they could maybe try and make up for some of the things that it's going to lose. But I don't think I would want a simplified camera system and what would definitely be worse battery life than the phone that I currently have, just because it's thin,
for sure.
Yeah. But I do still support this idea, because this sounds to be potentially a more compelling product than the Plus phone, because at least it's doing something different. It has a point of view.
And you could see people opting for it instead of the 17.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because it's really thin and something else, shiny. Yeah. Going back to Mark Gurman, he reported in Power On that Apple is redesigning the Magic Mouse, saying that they are, quote, aiming to devise something that better fits the modern era, and that Apple is looking to create something more relevant while also fixing long-standing complaints. Of course, the way it is charged. I find this interesting, because I think we spoke about this on the show before. I just assumed that the Magic Mouse would just go away, and that was the end of Apple's time with mice.
Well, your anti-mouse sentiments are not shared at Apple.
I'm using a mouse right now, right? But the thing is that good mice, like the Logitech MX Master 3S that I use right now, they are best when they are most ergonomic. And the style of ergonomic design that I think is required for mice is not really Apple's style.
Okay, let me paint you a picture, because I was thinking about this too, and I think this also goes back to our previous statement about USB-C in the EU, that like everybody got all upset that the Magic Mouse didn't change, but that was a port swap. That's all they were trying to do there. They weren't trying to redesign that thing, and they haven't, and that's fine. Let me paint my word picture for you here, which is the last 2 times I've had a briefing about AirPods. Apple has boasted about all the work they've done to get biometric data about people's ears so that they can build this design that is kind of, if you look at, have you ever really looked at an AirPod, Myke? They look kind of weird.
I think. But
they look kind of weird. And the reason they look weird is they're trying to create a shape that is kind of conducive to the most ear shapes around, in the world of people. And they've said like their first thing was an one size fits all that was like just round, and they realized that didn't fit a lot of ears, so they made shape changes, and then they did it again with this latest version. They said that they changed the shape again based on even more data. I asked them about this because I thought it was compelling the first time when they said, I got the sense, they didn't say this, but I really got the sense that they had just used it. People at Apple had used it and were like, yes, it feels good. And that in the world, people's ears are not like being represented inside Apple, like that there's a broader range of ear shapes out there. I say all of this to say I could totally see Apple do a new mouse that's shaped a little weird, that Apple thinks is like the best ergonomics for the widest range of people, which is not to say it will be like a very specific niche ergonomic mouse, but that they will boast about the ergonomics and the research they did. And Gurman suggests this when he talks about it being ergonomic, and that they will, but it'll be like AirPods. Not everybody's going to like it, but it will be something that they'll be able to claim is going to be better for mouse users in general. I could totally see them doing that. A thing that's sort of like a mouse, but shaped a little bit strangely. You grip it a little bit weirdly, but it's more modern. I mean, they want it to be stylish, but they also want it to be, be able to make some ergonomic claims. I totally can see that story being one that they would tell.
And finally, Apple has made progress on the hypertension detection for the Apple Watch. So rather than a system that would be able to give you a blood pressure reading on demand, say like the ECG on the Apple Watch, this system would warn you of hypertension, which is a state of abnormally high blood pressure, and encourage you to have a traditional blood pressure test. So this would be more a warning thing, like the sinus, you got like a heart event, or if you have sleep apnea, like the system can be like, hey, you should take a look at this, and then you go and get an actual blood pressure test done. But yeah, another thing that could potentially be coming to the Apple Watch in the near future. They've made some advancements on it. So let's do a very quick Betails, Jason. We don't have anything to say on this. But as we are recording, iOS 18.3 is out. It never ends. No. iOS 18.3 is out now. I am installing it as we speak. Maybe we'll have something to talk. Well, we'll be talking about this, I don't know, probably next year now, right? Because I guess this is something we're saying.
Yeah, we got the upgradies.
The special. Then it's the upgradies, and then we'll be back to regular scheduled programming in January.
January 6th.
But I'm expecting in 0.3 more Apple Intelligence stuff. So would be the expectation. So we'll see.
Here's my guess. I haven't gotten any briefings from Apple about this, which leads me to believe that maybe it doesn't have any major Apple Intelligence features, or at least not yet, because that's the other thing they could do, right? They could roll that out in the later beta.
Okay.
I think maybe they just wanted to get this beta out the door to start the beta process. But look, everybody's going to be going on vacation and stuff at Apple too for the holiday break.
Yeah,
so I think this might be more placeholdery than that, but we'll see, and we will catch you up if there's anything to be caught up in January.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Fitbod. If you're looking to change your fitness level, and maybe now is the time of year that you might think of it, hey, maybe you're thinking of a year of health, Fitbod is a great place to get started. Fitbod is an easy and affordable way to build a fitness plan that is made just for you. Because everybody has their own path with personal fitness, Fitbod makes sure that they customize things to suit you perfectly. It will adapt as you improve, so every workout remains challenging, pushing you to make the progress that you're looking for. A workout program works best when it is tailored to meet you where you are, your body, your experience, your environment, and your goals. That's when you'll get the best results. So Fitbod takes all of that and they store it in your Fitbod gym profile. Fitbod will then track your muscle recovery so you can avoid burnout and keep up your momentum. And it builds the best possible workout by combining AI with exercise science. They have analyzed billions of data points that have been fine-tuned by certified personal trainers. Fitbod wants to make sure that they're mixing up your workouts for you to keep them fun and engaging, but also to design that well-balanced workout routine, because your muscles work best when they're working together. Overworking some or underworking others will negatively impact your results. So they mix up your workouts with new exercises, rep schemes, supersets, and circuits. And when you're learning these new exercises, you can learn them the right way thanks to more than 1,000 demonstration videos. Their app is really easy to use. You can stay informed through tracking charts, weekly reports, and sharing cards, so you can keep track of your personal achievements and personal bests, but also share them with friends and family too. I really love how Fitbod integrates in my Apple Watch, so when I'm doing my workouts, I can see what's coming up and I can do the workout and advance it, but I can go to my phone if I want to watch a video because it's a new workout. It also integrates with your Wear OS smartwatch and other apps you might use like Strava, Fitbit, and Apple Health. Personalized training of this quality can be expensive, but Fitbod is just $12.99 a month or $79.99 a year, but you can get 25% off your membership by signing up at fitbod.me/upgrade. So go now and get your customized fitness plan at fitbod.me/upgrade. That is fitbod.me/upgrade for 25% off your membership. Thanks to Fitbod for their continued support of this show and Relay. It's time for some Ask Upgrade questions. Ooh, dramatic. I loved it. Will says, I loved hearing about Jason's recent switch to an all-laptop lifestyle, and I'm curious if and how this could impact backups. Obviously, iCloud backups would work, but do you use Time Machine or SuperDuper or Backblaze or anything like that? And does the machine not being always turned on and plugged in to an external storage limit the usefulness of these backups?
Still working on it, but I use Time Machine to my server, and that happens whether it's awake or not. So that one's fine. I have been using Carbon Copy Cloner, and that will probably continue because what I do is I have it attached, and then at a time during the day it clones, and then it ejects the disk. Basically, it just unmounts the disk. So I figured that unless I happen to pull the computer off in the middle of a clone, it will continue to do that. I probably will position a different disk at both places I work.
Okay.
So that I've got two clones going on.
Yeah.
But I haven't figured that one out quite yet. But yeah, that will be the end result, is that in addition to Time Machine, and I have Backblaze running on my server, but not on my actual computer. But I do have it backing up the files on my server. So that's the answer, is Time Machine plus the clone.
Time Machine on the server to Backblaze. Does that work?
I don't know. I should check.
That could be interesting.
That one's a mystery. Also, by the way, yes, for those who are asking, I am on the MacBook Pro docked at my desk in the garage right now.
How are you feeling about it so far?
I am learning about all of the edge cases like this question from Will that now come up, where, like, here's an example. I do podcasts in both places. I have different microphones in both places, right? Well, Audio Hijack doesn't like that. Audio Hijack doesn't have the ability to say, use this microphone, or if not, use this microphone. And you can put two microphones in there, but then it throws an error every time you start saying, one of the microphones isn't there, and I don't want to do that. So I have had to struggle with, like, all of these little details of how does this work, and
because you
when
could
does
set
the power shut off, and
as default audio input, but then you got to trust macOS to set it correctly, which I would not. Right.
Well, and it's not going to change my default audio input from one microphone to another. It's not going to do that. And also there's output, right? Because I also listen, and and this is a detail that I think a lot of people miss, is I listen to our conversation in headphones attached to my interface because I can also hear my own voice, and that's very important. I don't use these headphones to listen to any other sound on my system. So I can't set my default audio output to my USB interface. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm not moving all of my microphones from room to room. That's stupid. I would never do that. The whole point here is just a laptop. And I have the two setups. I don't need to move my microphones. I have the two setups. So ends up being things like, what I realize is I have two different Stream Decks, and Stream Decks don't sync. And so I just have the button. I found a shell script that you can run that will list all of your USB devices that are attached to your system. And so my shortcuts have been amended to basically say, if this one is there, this is the name of the Audio Hijack session to run, and if this other one is there, run this other audio hijack session.
Separate like audio hijack setups.
Right.
Like
so I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking I could have different automations on my buttons on my Stream Deck, but what I decided to do actually is just have duplicates of my audio hijack setup set to the different input devices, and then the shortcut that fires when I press record sees which mic is attached and runs the appropriate thing. Now, I also did a feature request to Rogue Amoeba saying you should probably have like a chain of input devices that are allowed. So it's like use A, and if A is not there, use B. Mm-hmm. And then if you can't find one, then give me that error that you like to give me, that you can't find it. That would be nice. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna wait for that. So that, but this is my point: is it's stuff like this now that are coming up, which is it's the, I can move my computer between setups, but the accessories are different. The setup is a little different. How do I deal with that? That's the stuff I'm grappling with now. But otherwise, I mean, it's been pretty great. I mean, the nice thing is I add things on the computer in the back, and then I move the computer out here, and it's the same computer. So all those things are still there. That is fantastic. But there's a lot more yet to do, I guess I would say.
I just use Backblaze and don't think about it. That's me.
Oh yeah, in terms of backup, sure. I just don't want to. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I need to do that. All my super important stuff is backed up so many different ways now, including from the server via Backblaze. That's what I am doing. But I don't just. I've got my time machine and I've got my clones, and I'm happy with that.
Well, my weird thing is Backblaze and Dropbox, because I save literally every file in Dropbox, and so
almost everything that I have is either in Dropbox or iCloud. It really is just the clones are really there, and even the time machine, they're really there for convenience sake. Time machine is there so I can roll back to a file earlier, like yesterday, if I make a mistake, and the clone is there. In fact, to get to this computer state now. My migration from the Mac Studio stalled out, and but my migration from the clone did not. So I just used the clone of my Mac Studio to migrate to the new laptop. So it's like for convenience sake more than anything else, so I can save all my preferences and stuff like that. But like my important files are in the cloud somewhere, probably in multiple places, plus in multiple backups, et cetera, et cetera.
And I do also have a time machine drive attached to the computer that I'm talking to you from right now.
That's nice.
And so even though it's like I save everything in Dropbox, so Dropbox is on backups, and then Backblaze is backing up my Dropbox, and then I have Time Machine also back. So like it's distributed in a way, so I have it if I ever need it. Eric says, if either of you were offered a job at Apple doing what you do best and didn't have to move, would you take it? You'd have to give up your current businesses and go radio silent as a public person on the internet.
This is just a version of that Dodgers question, honestly, which is, if they paid you, would you be a Dodger fan? It's like everybody's got a price. I will also say that several of my colleagues at Macworld over the years went to Apple and went radio silent, at least on... You actually don't go radio silent as a public person, but you do go radio silent for technology and things, right? Like,
I mean, that's gotten better over time. Like, it used to be like, no, you never speak. You don't speak anymore.
That's right. It's better than it was, but it's still true that you're giving all that up. Like Chris Breen, who just retired.
Congrats, Chris.
But he went to Apple,
composer
and it was like, that's
of the Upgrade theme music. All of our music, Chris Breen's originals.
And he could still do that, but he was a person on the internet who had opinions about tech, and all of that he set aside to go work inside at Apple. And that's what I would say is, everybody's got a price. I don't know what my price would be to give it all up and go on the inside. It would probably be pretty high, because I feel like once I give it all up, there's no going back, at least not easily, because the damage will be done. I'll have to shut everything down. So it would have to be a lot. And I was thinking about this because there's a story that I'm sure I've told before. I might have even told it on Free Agents podcast back in the day, but I'll do a quick version of it here, which is early on in my career as an independent, a friend of mine used to work at Amazon, and he was pitching them on a job where they would get an editorial. He was a designer on the homepage of Amazon, and he said, we need editorial for the homepage of Amazon. We need somebody who is looking at what we're doing from an editorial and content standpoint to manage it. And I know just the guy. And that was me. And he set it up, and Amazon recruiters like set up a flight to Seattle and for me to be interviewed and all of these things. And the day before the flight, they contacted me and said, we've decided not to do this. I was like, that's fine. Like, okay. Very funny that you got to this point and then decided it. But I think they rethought it, or I don't know what the internal politics of it are, but I was willing to talk to them because Amazon, and that sounds like a huge, interesting job. And it was early on in my time. But here's the thing. One of the things I had to do in that period where while I was being an independent, there were also people coming to me with job offers. And I kept thinking, I'm new to this. Is this going to last? Am I going to be able to make a living? At the very least, I need to listen to the job offers. Mm-hmm. But I had been doing it long enough that I knew how much money I was making and that I had basically replaced my income from IDG. And I was happy doing it. And it looked like this business was solid. And so I started to think of what they would have to pay me. Because I say everybody's got a price. I started to think, what would you have to pay me for me to, as Eric's scenario suggests, to stay at my house but work somewhere else? And do I have to commute like to Apple? Do I have to ride on a bus for an hour and a half every day and each way? Right? Like that's part of it too. So do I work from home? Do I have to commute? Do I have to move? Do I have to move out of the region? They all change the price, right? But what I realized, the most important insight of that Amazon thing is that I started to think, like, if they offer me this job, what would it take for me to move to Seattle and drop all my stuff and just do this job? And it was a great exercise because I looked at what I make and I look at our life and I look at the time it was like, and my kids and all of that. And I realized that it was the amount of money people would need to pay me in order to stop what I'm doing, which I like and when it's just working perfectly fine, to do something else is always going to be more than anybody should pay me. If that makes any sense.
It does.
The amount of money you would need to pay me to stop doing what I'm doing is not money you should pay me because I'm not worth it, right? Like it would need to be in the scenario of what if they paid you $150 million to be a Dodger fan? It's a fun thing to think about, but in reality, anybody who would be willing to pay that to me is not thinking straight, right? Like it doesn't make sense. And it's mostly about me. Now, if my business was falling apart and I didn't have enough money to support myself and somebody came, well, obviously my price is lower then. Mm-hmm. But currently, and certainly was the case when I was a year in or whatever, it was just a fun realization. So everybody does have a price, but I would say I don't expect anybody, this is why I've stopped thinking about it at all, this is the true reason why I'm unhirable now. Not only have I done 10 years of being my own boss, which like, I'm sorry, I'm not receptive to not being in charge at this point. That's just the truth of it. Yes. I have my opinions and I collaborate with people all the time. We do it here, but like to just go and be a cog in the corporate wheel at this point,
being told you had to be somewhere at a certain time, be at this meeting that you don't want to go to, like, when you have no control over it, that kind of stuff is difficult.
Right. I'd rather not, right? I'd rather not, and I don't need to. And I can't envision a price that is rational that you would pay. And so I realize now, this is why I think I'm essentially unhirable at this point in my career, is there's no job that makes sense, that would pay me enough for me to take it.
Yep.
And and I want to be clear here, I'm not boasting about this. this was a very important personal insight, and I feel very fortunate to be able to make it. But right, and it could change. If my business falls apart, in the next 5 years, I could be in the point where I'm like, maybe doing what Chris Breen did is a good idea.
So bad.
Because Chris was burned out. I mean, Chris. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not, and there's no judgment here, but it's like maybe a retirement job where I work there until I retire and they pay me fine, and I'm toiling in obscurity is what is right for me at the time. But right now, it doesn't make any sense. So the answer is to Eric is everyone has a price, but I can tell you in my previous dealings with Apple where they have recruited me before and after I worked at IDG. While I worked at IDG and after I left, I talked to Apple people about their jobs. And when it comes to what they'd pay me for the job that they were thinking of for me, like I gave them a figure. I actually did give them a figure, and they're like, whoa, that's out of our price range, but we do have like stock options. It's like, the answer was that even Apple could not pay me what I wanted them to pay me. So it's unlikely. It would take like an executive who's like, oh man, we really want that Jason energy.
It's the only person that can save
at
us
any cost, or to take him off the board. There's that scenario too. You want to talk about your conspiracy theory yarn board? There's
Jason's
like, how much does it pay for
Jason
to not? I think the reverse is actually true, which is that Apple would rather that I be out here doing what I'm doing than to have me stop it. But anyway, so that's the answer is, look, I am sure that there is a price that I would be happy to walk away from everything I do because it would be life-changing money, but I don't expect that to exist anywhere except in the realm of fantasy. What about you, Myke?
It's not about the money for me. It's about the work. Because, like, if we imagine a scenario, it's like Apple comes to me now and they're like, hey, you know that thing you've been building for like the last 10 years? Throw it away now and come work for us. I have too much pride in what we've done to let go of that. So they would have to. So like that, I don't.
Well,
I
what's the guarantee?
Don't think that there is an amount of money that again would be even close to the realm of realistic, or even past like realistic level 1. Right? It really is for me. What is
because you're talking about throwing away what you built?
Yeah.
And are they going to give? I would say also unrealistic is, well, I'm going to need. You can pay me this, or you can pay me less, but you have to give me a 5-year contract, right? Like that theoretical Dodger contract, right? And nobody's going to do that. But it's like, well, I'm not going to shut down my businesses that I've spent 10 years building to go do a thing that may or may not last a year, right? Like, no, I'm right, because you built this
there
thing.
Are jobs,
you would have to walk away from it.
Like there are jobs that if Apple came and said, Myke, come do this job, I think I would find it very, very hard to turn them down. But there are jobs that they would not give me, right? There are jobs that like they would not give to me. But like for example, I don't know what the job like. I would want to work in the top design team. Well, they're not going to give me that job because I have no skills in that, right? Like I'm not skilled enough for that. Or I want to be very senior at product marketing. It's like, well, they're not going to give me that. But like these are the things where if somebody at Apple came to me and said, "No, you're the you're the only one. We need just your brain. No one else's brain will do the job." Then I would consider it, right? But like that's never going to happen because it's not accurate. Right. They're not going to need me.
And yet, in another way, it is perfectly accurate because what we're describing, those jobs, we need your brain. It has to be your brain. Those are the jobs we've built for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
we're already
there.
They're
our brains. Yeah,
they're already there. So
hey, Myke,
anyway,
we need notebooks, but it's not the ones you think. You know, like we need the other notebooks. Only you can do it.
I want to be clear. We're both very lucky to have ended up here. We also worked really hard and took risks and all of those things too. It's all and not everybody, as I used to say on Free Agents all the time, not everybody can do the kinds of jobs we do in the sense that like it's really hard. You have to supply all of the responsibility. Like I talked to some people who are like, I could never do it if I was my own boss. And it's like some people can't. And we are fortunate to be able to do that and have our projects and and trust me, I'm sure you feel this way too. I absolutely have those days where I'm staring at the computer. I'm like, "Bruh," and it's like, there's no boss to set a deadline. I have to do it. I just have to do it because it's my livelihood.
I have the days where I'm like, man, I wished I was just on a salary. Like that I didn't have to worry about money right now. Like, like I just wished that I knew what my salary was next month. Now, the realistic part of that is you can always be fired, right? And I know that. So like really nobody ever feels comfortable.
Yeah, that's the classic.
I at least have a sense of agency in that like I can do things, but like which is much harder if like you do not have the control to move your business forward, but it's failing.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, there's the regular gig. I always thought about this in the context of John Siracusa, who was sort of reluctant to leave his regular gig for a long time. Was a regular gig is secure in a sense because you don't have to worry about it. They just pay you until they stop paying you, and that's the thing, is that what you really are is insulated from the vagaries of month to month, because they're going to give you your salary regardless. Whereas if it's your own business, you are not insulated from that. And if the money doesn't come in, you don't get paid. And that's just how that works. And so it's just different. But look, everybody's different. We're very fortunate to be able to do this. And yes, if you're a, billionaire who wants to just set up Jason and Myke LLC and give us a lot of money, we'll talk. I'm not going to turn in.
If you're a billionaire that would like to buy Relay or Upgrade, hey, if you're a goal hanger and you want sure. the rest is technology, you just call us. We're here.
Call us. But what I would say is, it's, I'm always, if somebody approached me and said, Jason, I want to talk about this job, I'll talk. But I no longer feel like there's any likelihood that it's going to lead anywhere. But I will. I'm always going to listen, but I think it's not realistic at this point, which is fine.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Eric.
We're happy here.
That one in. If you would like to send in a question of your own, you can always go to upgradefeedback.com. You can send us your Ask Upgrade questions, or also your feedback or your follow-up at any time. You can check out Jason's work at sixcolors.com, and you can hear his podcasts at The Incomparable and here on Relay. You can listen to me here on Relay 2 and check out my work at cortexbrand.com. You can follow us on social media. We're both on Mastodon, Blue Sky, and Threads. I'm more on Threads than Jason is, but you can
more on Mastodon.
Follow in there if you want to. I've been enjoying Blue Sky. It's just been enjoying it. It's been the one
I had
I've been
a post that went
first
viral on Blue Sky.
Did you? What was it? What was it about?
The Cal Bears hired as an offensive consultant the former coach at Washington State, who was fired for refusing to comply with their vaccination policy.
Okay.
And my post was, next year's Cal offense is going to be great until the polio sets in.
Oh, no.
And very slowly it gained speed, and people retweeted it or reposted it or whatever you do. And I thought that was amusing to see a very slow but viral spread of something on Blue Sky. I hadn't had that happen before, so that made me laugh.
You can watch clips of this show on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We're at Upgrade Relay. Thank you to our members who support us with Upgrade Plus. And thank you to our sponsors, Fitbod and Squarespace. But most of all, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with the Upgrade Holiday Special. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Goodbye, Myke Hurley.